You felt it, didn't you? That sudden buzz on your phone, her name lighting up your screen after days, maybe weeks of silence. And in that exact moment, your heart didn't just beat, it dropped. Because now you're stuck between two fears: reply too fast and look desperate, or wait and risk losing control again. That's the game you've been pulled into. And the worst part? She already knows it. Before we go any further, if you've ever felt confused, ignored, or emotionally pulled around in a relationship like this, make sure you subscribe and like this video. Because what I'm about to show you isn't surface level advice. It's the kind of psychological truth most people learn too late. Now listen carefully. When she texts after silence, it's not random. It's never random. Silence is a move. And breaking that silence, that's another move. You need to understand that this isn't just about communication. It's about control. Women don't always disappear because they've lost interest. Sometimes they disappear to see what happens to your energy when they're gone. Do you chase? Do you panic? Do you overthink? Or do you stay grounded? Because your reaction during silence tells her more about you than anything you ever said when things were good. And now she's back. But here's the truth most men don't want to hear. The moment she texts again is not your moment of relief. It's your moment of testing. She's not just reaching out. She's measuring you. She's asking, without saying it, did he stay the same man I left, or did he collapse without me? And if you respond the same way you always do, fast, eager, overly emotional, you answer that question immediately. You confirm that she still holds the power. That's why what you say next matters more than anything that came before. Not because of the words themselves, but because of what those words communicate about your emotional position. Are you still waiting for her, or did your world keep moving without her? Because power in dating isn't about being cold or manipulative. It's about emotional stability. It's about showing without trying that your peace was never dependent on her presence. And right now, she's looking for cracks, any sign that she can step back into your life without earning her place again. So if your instinct is to say, hey, I missed you, or where did you go? Understand this. You're handing her reassurance she didn't earn. You're rewarding the silence. And once you reward that behavior, it will repeat. What you're about to learn isn't about playing games. It's about ending them. Because the moment you respond correctly, the dynamic shifts. And she feels it. Right now, she's waiting for something from you. Not just a reply, but a version of you she remembers. The old version, the one who reacted quickly, the one who filled silence with emotion, the one who made her feel like she still had access to your attention whenever she wanted. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think the goal is to say something clever, something impressive, something that wins her back. No, the goal is to stop giving emotional access away for free. Because when she texts after silence, she's not just checking in on you. She's checking if she still affects you. And your first response either confirms that or completely disrupts it. Let me be very direct with you. If you reply with urgency, you are not showing love. You are showing availability. And availability without boundaries always lowers perceived value. Now, I want you to notice something important about your mindset in moments like this. Your brain starts racing. You overthink tone, timing, emoji, whether to act casual or emotional. You start crafting a performance instead of a response. And that's the trap, because the moment you start performing, you're no longer grounded in yourself. You're reacting to her. And the truth is, she can feel that shift instantly, even through text. But if you pause, not to play games, not to manipulate, but to return to yourself, something changes. You stop responding from anxiety. You start responding from presence. And presence is powerful because it doesn't chase. It doesn't rush. It doesn't try to fix the silence. Now listen closely, because this is the psychological pivot most people miss. Her reaching out after silence is often not a commitment. It's an emotional check-in on her own curiosity. She wants to know, is he still there emotionally if I step away? And if you answer too eagerly, you unknowingly tell her, yes, I was waiting. But if you answer from calm detachment, not coldness, not arrogance, just emotional stability, you communicate something completely different. I'm not moved by absence. I'm not shaken by distance. My life doesn't pause. That energy is felt immediately. And it creates a subtle shift in her perception, because now she can't predict you anymore. She can't assume access. She can't assume emotional availability. And unpredictability, when grounded in calm confidence, is what resets dynamics. But here's where you must be careful. This is not about ignoring her to create value. That's childish. That's still emotional reaction, just inverted. This is about removing urgency from your response, because urgency is what exposes attachment. And attachment without balance always creates imbalance in how you're treated. So before you reply to her message, don't ask, "What should I say?" Ask something far more important. What energy am I about to confirm about myself? Because once you send it, you can't take it back. Now let's talk about the moment you actually respond, because this is where most people lose everything without realizing it. She texts you after silence, and your thumb is already hovering. Your emotions are already involved. Even if you haven't replied yet, you've already reacted internally. That's the part nobody sees, but she would feel it instantly if it leaks into your message. So the first rule is simple. Don't carry urgency into your response. You're not trying to impress her. You're not trying to fix the silence. And you're definitely not trying to win her back in one message. That mindset alone puts you beneath the dynamic. Now here's the truth most people never hear clearly enough. Her return after silence doesn't automatically mean emotional reconnection. It often means curiosity, comfort seeking, or testing emotional availability. She might be checking if you're still predictable, still easy, still waiting. And if you respond like nothing happened emotionally, but everything is still available to her, she gets confirmation that she can step in and out of your life without consequence. That's where your power quietly disappears. So what do you actually do? You respond like a man who is not emotionally displaced by absence, not distant, not cold, not trying to punish, just unaffected. Because emotional stability is not silence. It's not games. It's not delay tactics. It's the absence of emotional collapse when someone reappears. Now here's where psychology becomes important. When someone leaves and returns, your brain wants closure. It wants explanation. It wants emotional symmetry. Where did you go? Why now? But asking those questions too quickly shifts you into a position of emotional need, and emotional need always lowers your perceived stability. Instead, your response should do something very specific. It should acknowledge her presence without rewarding the silence that came before it. That means no emotional overcompensation, no sudden warmth to rebuild connection, no frustration disguised as curiosity, because all of those are emotional reactions. And emotional reactions are what she is subconsciously measuring. Think of it like this. She is not just reading your words. She is reading your state. And your state is revealed in how much control she still has over your emotional tempo. If she can still accelerate you, she still has influence. If she can still slow you down emotionally, she still has influence. But if you remain steady, regardless of her timing, something shifts. Now she's not evaluating how much you want her. She's evaluating whether she can affect you the way she used to. And that uncertainty creates recalibration, because now she cannot rely on your emotional predictability anymore. And unpredictability, when calm, is what forces respect to return into the dynamic. But remember this carefully. The goal is never to punish her with distance. The goal is to remove emotional dependence from your replies. Because the moment your response is no longer shaped by her absence, you stop losing power in her presence. At this point, something subtle is happening in your mind, and you might not even notice it. You start interpreting her message as hope. Hope that she missed you. Hope that she's coming back for something real. Hope that this silence meant something emotional on her side. And this is exactly where people get pulled back into the cycle, because hope feels good. But it's also dangerous when it's not grounded in behavior. Let me be clear with you. A message after silence is not proof of emotional commitment. It is only proof of re-entry, nothing more. And how you respond determines whether you stay in control of your emotional state or slide back into old patterns. Now, I want you to understand something psychologically important. When someone disappears and returns, your nervous system remembers the uncertainty. Even if you act calm, your body remembers the confusion, the waiting, the unanswered questions. That's why your first instinct is often emotional. Relief, curiosity, even excitement. But she is not just responding to your words. She is responding to your emotional stability under uncertainty. And this is where most people fail without realizing it. Because instead of staying steady, they try to repair the gap instantly. They over-explain. They over-engage. They try to restore emotional closeness immediately. But emotionally mature connection doesn't restart with intensity. It restarts with balance. If she stepped away and came back, the dynamic cannot continue as if nothing shifted internally. That would signal one thing, that your emotional baseline is unchanged regardless of how she behaves. And that's where self-respect quietly disappears from the interaction. Now here's the real shift you need to understand. You are not trying to win her back with your response. You are observing whether she can re-enter your life without emotional chaos. Because someone who values your presence will not want to re-enter in a way that disrupts your peace. And someone who is testing access will expect you to adjust immediately to their timing again. So your response should reflect something very specific. I'm here, but I'm not emotionally reset by your return. Not in words, in energy. Because when your emotional state remains unchanged by her absence, something powerful happens. She no longer feels like she can reset the dynamic at will. And that creates a psychological shift. Now she is no longer just reaching out to reconnect. She is trying to understand where she stands in a system that didn't collapse without her. And that realization changes how she engages with you next. Because people don't challenge stability, they adjust to it. Now we get to the part most people misunderstand completely. She's back in your life. At least in text. The conversation has started again, and now your mind starts doing something very dangerous. It starts trying to secure her. You begin to think in terms of keeping her interested, not messing this up, saying the right things. And the moment that mindset appears, you're no longer leading the interaction. You're managing anxiety. Let me slow this down for you. When someone returns after silence, the real question is not, how do I keep her here? The real question is this return aligned, or is it just emotional impulse? Because people come back for many reasons. Loneliness, curiosity, boredom, nostalgia, ego checking, comfort seeking. But very few come back with clarity, and you can feel the difference in how they communicate if you're not emotionally entangled. Now here's where emotional intelligence matters more than attraction tactics. If you immediately match her energy, you assume her return is meaningful. If you immediately increase emotional warmth, you assume stability has already been restored. But nothing has been restored yet. There is only contact again, not connection. And if you confuse contact with connection, you start over-investing emotionally into something that hasn't earned it. That's how people repeat cycles. So what do you do instead? You slow your internal reaction, not your external behavior, but your internal urgency. You let the conversation exist without trying to define it too quickly, because people who are unsure often reveal themselves in layers, not in one message. And if you rush to assign meaning, you miss the truth of what's actually happening. Now listen carefully. The strongest position you can hold in this moment is not emotional withdrawal and not emotional pursuit. It is emotional neutrality with awareness. You're not punishing her for leaving. You're not over-rewarding her for returning. You are simply observing consistency, because consistency is what determines value, not timing, not words, not apology energy. And when you stop over-investing in the return moment, something shifts again. She starts to notice that her presence does not create emotional chaos in you anymore. No spike of excitement, no desperation to hold the conversation, no sudden emotional overcommitment, just grounded interaction. And that is unfamiliar to most dynamics like this, because most people unconsciously reward inconsistency with emotional availability. But when you don't, you interrupt the pattern. And when patterns get interrupted, people either step back and reassess or try harder to regain influence. Either way, you are no longer predictable in the old sense. And unpredictability, when calm, forces recalibration in how you are treated, because now she cannot assume that her return automatically restores emotional access. And that uncertainty changes everything silently. Now we reach the point where everything becomes clear, quietly, without drama, without arguments, without explanations. Because the real power shift doesn't happen when she texts you. It happens after you respond. What most people don't realize is this: her next behavior is shaped less by what you say and more by what you don't react to emotionally. If she came back expecting the same version of you, quick replies, emotional availability, subtle reassurance, and she doesn't find it, something internal changes for her. Not immediately dramatic, not obvious, but real, because she expected a certain emotional response. And instead, she got stability. And stability is hard to manipulate. Now here's the truth that ties everything together. When someone leaves and returns, they are subconsciously testing one thing. Do I still have the same emotional access I had before I left? And your entire power lies in how you answer that, not with words, but with consistency. If you over-reward the return, you teach that absence has no consequence. If you over-punish it, you reveal emotional instability. But if you remain steady, calm, present, not over-invested, you communicate something rare. My life doesn't destabilize based on your presence or absence. And that is what resets dynamics. Because now she is no longer interacting with someone who reacts to her timing. She is interacting with someone who has their own emotional baseline. And people adjust to baselines, not intensity. This is where attraction shifts in a deeper way. Not because you played it right, but because you stopped outsourcing emotional control to her behavior. And something important happens when that shift becomes clear. She starts to feel the gap between expectation and reality. She expected emotional re-entry. She got emotional steadiness. She expected familiarity. She got boundaries without explanation. And that creates reflection. Not always immediate action. Not always apology. But reflection. Because now she cannot easily categorize you in the same way anymore. You are no longer the version of you that reacts to silence. You are the version that remains intact through it. And that changes how you are perceived over time. But here's the final truth you need to understand, one that most people avoid. Your goal was never to get the perfect reply. Your goal was to stop being emotionally moved by inconsistent access. Because once you reach that state, you don't need scripts, tricks, or perfect timing. You simply respond from stability. And when stability becomes your default, you stop losing power in moments that used to control you.